Good morning and welcome to the big story on Daybreak Live, right here on Dominion Television. Today we turn the spotlight on one of the most fundamental pillars of our democracy, the Nigerian Constitution, and the growing conversations around its review and reform. With economic pressures biting harder and governance concerns, eyebrows across regions, the call for constitutional dialogue is gaining traction again. But what does a review mean for the everyday Nigerian? Is this just another political ritual or a genuine attempt to bridge the gap between government and the governed? I am Samson Balogun. Welcome once again. Nigeria's constitution has long been a subject of debate, criticized for its military roots and a perceived detachment from the lived realities of ordinary citizens. As discussions around constitutional review surfaces, key questions emerge. Is this the right time for constitutional reform, given the numerous economic and security challenges facing the country as we speak? Will the process be inclusive, reflecting the voices of real Nigerians, or will it remain an elite conversation in high offices? And critically, will any proposed changes truly favor the average citizen or merely protect political interests? Today, we dissect the essence of constitutional review, its urgency, and what's really at stake for Nigerians everywhere. Our guest, Oba Adeoye from Lagos, will help us unpack the possibilities, the pitfalls, and the pathway to a more people-centered governance structure. Good morning, this is The Big Story. Samson Balogun is my name, and I have online, joining me from Lagos State this morning via Zoom, is Oba Adeoye. Oba Adeoye, good morning to you.
Yes, good morning, Samson. How are you this morning?
I'm fine. You look amazing. Good morning to you once again. Okay, there's the growing concerns by the people talking about a constitutional review. Don't forget that people still say that this is not our constitution, but a borrowed constitution that has been amended so many times. And many a times people say it is only amended to suit the elite in the society. Now, let me ask you this. What exactly is the goal of this proposed constitutional review? Is it a total overhaul or just a minor amendment?
Okay, Samson, thank you so much for having me on the program this morning. Let us try to put this in proper context, just like you have rightly, established. Constitution the Constitution is meant to be a guide for the people of Nigeria and the people of the century. They say there are no law, there are no things. Possession. That's why we need. I am not a constitutional lawyer. I am journalist, so I'll be looking at the perspective of average Nigerian. Okay, now it will important to note this is the fifth time that constitutional review we attempted, and each of this time, huge amount of money, huge amount spent from public coffers. You see politicians, the lawmakers particularly, going around the country, to liaise with the people, to listen to the people, what they think, and take their input with the court perspective and go back, and consult with the state houses of assembly, go back to the National Assembly and make the final input in the constitution. But the question to ask, these 5 times the Constitution has been, amended since 1990. Of what impact, what result, what had been done of amendment 5 since 1990. That's the question. And then we need to compare, what that has brought up. That's one question. Compared to it's a huge amount went into such each of these 5 things. Don't get me wrong, is a prominent feature of any democratic in the world, but the constitution has an effect on the well-being of the Nigerian person. The answer is as obvious as the back. You know what I'm talking about. This last one, they told us they are going to touch on a lot of things going to touch on, I'm talking about the public hearing. They're going to touch on the electoral reforms. They are going to touch on federalism and resource control, judicial reforms, human rights, social justice, inclusive governance, and so on. Okay, but at the end of the day, we listen to chairman of that's Senator Okoyemi Bamidele from. He said a lot of things were brought into public hearing across the country. One of them, the most important among all things that were able the top across the political bloc where public hearing took place. What we came to our the next biggest priority for this. It goes to tell you that even Nigerians are not be properly educated to what to ask for people living them, what they need at every area. Many people have been to mere ethnic identity to want, okay, this is we must have a state. I am from Ibadan. I'm not local government of the state. And people will come there and us about it. Okay, you come, give us will come, give us about it. So we tend to abuse the claim of separation to ethnic identity, which of course it is the essence of it's so distinctive. People, spend that much energy with separation while people are paying attention to more important things that cause a touch here. According to one proposal where we see separation, can you imagine that almost times two of the existing that we have in if you have something that the only region requires an additional at this point in time for equity and for balance is the south region. If we check the map, check the we realize that only south that has a total of 5 states. Every other people have a total of 6 states. Why would the not also have like the rest of that region? So if I say, why would the majority to say that again? That equity should be applied in. I think their own call, plan of situation for me, my own view is fine. But for other regions, all manner of funny, look at it from the system of ethnic identity, then it shows that the problem in this quality. People really do not understand the need at every area. Even from this, for things that there are other more important social justice. Nobody about that. Or policing security. Look at the security situation. You realize that it is really getting out of hand. It is getting out of hand and it is creating Nigerians in their homes with 2 eyes closed. We may say in the southwest here we have some relative peace, but I can tell you that it's closer to us than ever before. Because it's not just that we got a report from Kwara State that some bandits invaded community and residents had to flee, for cover. So if it could happen to a place like Kwara State, which more or less is like a southwestern region, that people in the southwest should flee with their 2 eyes closed. We object to this should have been the front border across public places. That's my opinion on that is wrong. But
okay.
if state regulation to be secondary, to improve state policing. If you look at the people in government, while they were in the opposition, one of the major clamor that the people, repeatedly and constantly is subject to state police. They were, at every given opportunity, calling out the then federal government of the need to put state police in place, but they are too powerful.
Before we come back to the issue of state policing, Obadeoye, before we come back to the issue of state policing, now let me ask you this question. Let's talk about timing. At this point, so many Nigerians expected that the people in power should be more focused on some other things, especially with hardship which is in the country. The dollar rate is at around 1,600 naira. There is insecurity in almost every part of the country as we speak. It happened somewhere as close as Kwara State recently, and we have had kidnappings, bombings in some places. Now, these are other pressing issues that the government should be looking at. Now, let's talk about timing. Why is it coming at a time when the election? Why is it coming at a time when the election is, around the corner? Why now? Don't forget, we have had the Orasai report, the national confab. There has been attempts at the constitutional review, and every day on the floor of the house, if there is a sitting, there's something to talk about the Nigerian constitution. So why must we invest another money into constitutional review? Don't forget what it cost Nigeria to actually go through the national confab, which till today was not implemented. The Orasai report was not implemented. Why a new constitutional review now?
Yes, you already answered the question. Because, it's mentioned that anytime we have an election, anytime we are approaching season, politicians come up with a public hearing of the constitutional review, so-called constitutional review, are dumped into the dustbin. No concrete or measurable impact on the welfare of people. Just to tell you that the politicians think themselves more than that they were elected. Why must it come every time an election is it really about the people, or is it really about the politicians? Whose interest is this review? And that is one of those things that people, who spoke, talking about ethics, talking about national body, the rest of them. That should have been the big question senators during the public hearing, that why are we national review at this time that an election is around the corner about the 20 election. A lot of things like I told you were, ignore. We lift up too much of the world. We are talking about station, we are talking about things that we do not have direct effect on the life of average Nigerian out there. What we see on the table right now, like I mentioned earlier, is insecurity. Because where you don't have security, it is impossible for people to try to solve that problem. People should be at the front corner. You have the economy. They are at the front corner. The economy is in doldrums as we speak. We cannot keep deceiving ourselves. How much was a bag of rice in 2015? How much is a bag of rice today? What is the exchange rate today? Those are the questions, those are the things that we put on the table. And those are the measuring factor or measuring that we should start thinking about. And the leaders, should be asking the right question on behalf of the people that they are representing. What about the response? How independent is our judiciary? That we're talking about in the Constitution. What about moving out from items from the to the concurrent list? Those are the things we should be talking about, and not state police and not what have you. And the most painful part is that at the end of the day, we end up spending millions or billions of naira for this exercise, and then from the public coffers, money that should ordinarily, be expended with the welfare of the people, and at the end of the day, be an exercise in futility.
Okay, now let me
And then if you ask me,
let me ask
are
you
you saying
this.
something?
Let me ask you this very quickly, and then you combine that with what you wanted to say. Do you think Nigerians trust the current political actors to actually deliver, holistic and honest constitutional review that will favor the citizens more than the elites? Did you get that?
Okay, if you check the Vanguard newspaper edition of the survey that was conducted, and part of that survey says Nigerians do not trust the Tinubu administration and Nigerian big debt on that frontally directly answers your question. Nigerians really have lost the government to deliver, their dividends for them. We are not in 1990. Now, we are not in 2003, we are not in 2020, 2007. We are in 2025. The exposure, the understanding, the awareness among the people now is bigger than what we had in those years that I mentioned. So the people are more active, the people are more alive, and the people really know. It's difficult because you may have to bring in from the book to deceive, to tell people that you are serving them. The indices, they are on board. People can see a sitting minister writing voice, calling the block of the people that where he got the book to back it. Because it's only in Nigeria that it can be something. That the sitting minister, of the people, is buying brand new Rolls Royce, driving Rolls Royce at a time the country is going through difficult times. In other times, the minister now. By today, it will have become a common belief. But it's only in Nigeria that you have stuff that people are serving the society, who are serving the people, they are the people they are serving. And they are not public. And they are order. What about the president himself? Up to now, hold on. Where they got the money to buy the next platform. These are the issues on the table. You are telling us that you are serving in what capacity of serving. And people better off today than what they were 3, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years ago. That is the big question to be asking. But you know, be comparing Saturday or Sunday. The situation of Nigeria today, what Nigerians were prior to the question we said, beyond propaganda, beyond life, beyond plan. Nigerians know the truth. Nigerians know what in Lagos you want to get an accommodation. Okay, you will be afraid of 1.5 million naira per annum. That is accommodation in Lagos. Of course, Lagos government is doing something to address the situation. But how many Nigerians earn 1.5 million naira per month? How many Nigerians earn such amount in the country of Nigeria that we have to pay such amount for rented accommodation in like that goes to tell you the situation of the situation where Nigerians found compared to what was. How much is the bag of cement? How much is the block? 9 inches, 6 inches. How much they sell rods? The 32 how much do they cost? How much did they cost? These are the reasons tell you that Nigerians are and what they were in. That does not mean to say that the government is not making any effort. No. The government is making effort to get more serious and put more attention to those efforts than this reformation, equality of people wanting wealth, even voting well, you know, at the expense of Nigeria. What might what happened to Nigeria? And of course, at rate to that who should know who should lead by example. We are going to season. Therefore, I have to talk down on my luxury. It is the same people that are supposed to lead us right in front of us. It is so. It is so funny. And of course, going back to the question, why to review the constitution every time an election is in the offing, and then they end up spending a lot of money on the jamboree when we have other reports that are gathering dust on the shelf of the federal government. What has happened to the Orosanye report? When Tinubu came to power, he was telling us that he was going to implement the Orosanye report. Now we have come to realize that that was just a statement for the media. That was just a statement for the camera. They were not serious about the implementation of the Orosanye report. What about the National Compact report? It is there on the table, gathering dust. What have they done about the implementation of that compact? Do you know how much Nigeria, the federal government, spent on putting together that compact, that people went that they enjoyed luxury, they had a jamboree, enjoying the time together, save for Pastor Tunde Bakari and a couple of others who refused to any remuneration for that exercise. Billions of naira went into that jamboree. What is the result today? What effect has it had or has it taken on the life, on the the status of an average Nigerian? Almost zero. We keep talking about restructuring. We keep talking about all manners of things.
Let's take this.
We keep going in circles, and we start from this point. At the end of the day, we end up on that same point where we started our journey from. It shows that we are not serious. We are not Galatians. We need to be serious more than we are. Galatia. We are not the foolish Galatians.
Okay.
We are Nigerians. We need to be smarter. We have situations in our hands, and we need to address this situation to make the life of an average person better than what it was yesterday. That should be our concern, and not this jamboree that we are doing up and down. Let me ask you a big question. The 1999 Constitution, they keep saying a lot of things that are wrong with that Constitution. How much of that Constitution have you implemented? How much of that Constitution have you put to use? I'm not a constitutional lawyer, like I told you, but I meant to tell you, I have a copy of the Constitution. It is written in the English language, not in Latin, and not in Greek. So we understand what is written there. Okay. How much of that Constitution have we implemented? In that Constitution, the local government, in the fourth schedule of that Constitution, the local government administrations are given certain roles to play within, the present structure. Today, go to places like Lagos. Most of these responsibilities of the local government have been hijacked by the state government, almost rendering the local government useless and almost rendering them, almost putting them at their own mercy. You understand? And the governors now see themselves as superior to the local government chairman.
Let me ask you this.
Sacking democratically elected local government chairman. These are the things we need to consider in the Constitution. How do we grant independence to our judiciary? Those are the things we need to look at. How do we ensure that the electoral umpire, that's the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is truly independent in the true word, in the true sense of the word? These are the things we should be asking ourselves. But unfortunately, we have people who are much more concerned about state creation more than all of these more important things. It's saddening that we major too much on minors in this part of the world.
All right, Obadioye, let me ask you this question now, very quickly, because we have just a few more minutes before we go on this show, and I have a lot of questions to ask you. But let me take this first. What section of the Nigerian Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, as amended, which we are still using in Nigeria right now, what section of that Constitution do you think should be amended and reviewed? And how about implementation? How do you think those sections can be actually well implemented to serve the purpose it should ordinarily serve?
It's a pity I have my Constitution talk behind me here. I will have, stood up to pick a copy of that Constitution to show you some part of it. But I don't want to do that. We are on live television. But let me try to, reference some part of the Constitution. I'm much more, particular about security, because when you don't have security of lives and property, people cannot thrive. The economy cannot thrive. You understand? We cannot move about in our regular, we can't have social life, we cannot have economic life where there is insecurity. So the number one issue for me is the centralization of the police. The decentralization of the police. It's time for the police to be decentralized. We have spent too much time addressing this thing. We have spent too much time in rehearsing madness. When are we going to enter market? We have spent too much time talking about state police. When are we going to start implementing state police? When are we going to start implementing it? When are we going to start, picking people who are responsible for the security of a community from within that community? Look at what happened to the people of Benue State. You think if somebody or if you think the policemen in that community are drawn from that community? Tell you what, I've forgotten the name now. If they are picked from that, you think they will ignore the call of the resident when they sent an SOS to them? When they know that they have their kinsmen being attacked, they will put things together and go to their rescue. People said they sent out SOS. They sent out this. Nobody came to their rescue until after their assailant had left. That was when the security men, brought their weapons, their guns, and what have you, to come and do what? So if you pick people who are responsible for the security of that community,
okay,
come anywhere to come, and pounce on them and do as they wish without any repercussion. So for me, number one, we need to decentralize state police in that area. Number two is to ensure that local government operates the way they should operate. We need to review that part.
Devolution of power.
And include to that part that governors do not have power to usurp the powers of the local government administrations. Local governments are independent of the state government. They need to operate independently to that effect. Another one is that independent. Let us find a way of chairman that the president is not responsible for the appointment of the INEC chairman. Let us find a way of doing that. What about our legislature? They also need some review. We have over-bloated legislature. We need to review that. Despite that, we are talking about 31 new proposals for state creation. 31. If you have 31 new states, it means that we are going to have 3 new senators from each state. 3 times 31. That's how much senators are we going to be paying salary, to be feasting on us, going down and moving irrelevant motions and taking a ride on public funds. There are senators in that assembly who have not really contributed anything to the welfare of the people they represent. There are people in Nigerians who do not even know who their senators is. They don't know who represent them at the House of Assembly or at the House of Rep or at the Senate. You need to review all of those and make sure that you give more power to the people than the politicians. What we have at present, the politicians have too much powers above, more than the people that are serving them. People who employ you, the employees have more power than the employers. Is that not ridiculous? We need to look at that. We need to look at judicial. We need to consider that too. Who appoints the head of the judiciary? How do we appoint the head of the judiciary? We need to do that. In a country, was it not in Spain or so? They had an election to appoint. Of course, it may sound strange to achieve independence of the judiciary. To also ensure that the judiciary is truly independent. What about human rights? What have we done about human rights? Police brutality and what have we done about that? We need to look at that in our constitution. What about resource control? What about resource control? Go to Ogoniland, go to the South, where we have the gold, that petrol. How much of return do they enjoy from the petrol? Got it from their area. To start talking about resource control. These are the issues that should be on the front burner.
Okay.
Not state creation and this jamboree.
Obadioye, now let's take a look at this. For every action and inaction, there are consequences. Now, basically, let's talk about if this constitutional review is not properly worked on, if it is not properly delivered, what are the social and political consequences that it has on an average Nigerian out there?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, that look, put Nigerians above every other thing in this exercise of constitutional review. Once we do that, and we ensure we implement it to the letter, then the conditions of an average Nigerian will improve from what it is right now. That is what I'm saying. If it is done properly, because where there are no laws, there are no sins. If the Constitution is strengthened enough, if the Constitution is empowered enough, then there are certain things that some people are doing in government today that they go scot-free, that they will never.
Are you there? Okay, looks like the network is a little bit bad. But then he was talking about the chances of social and political consequences if the constitutional review is not properly executed. Now, there are mechanisms which can be put in place for this. But then we say thank you to Obadioye for joining us on the show this morning. There are so many things I still wish we were able to talk about before the network actually had an issue. But I do hope that we have a more robust conversation with Obadioye and some other legal luminaries in the country as regards what implication this has on the Nigerian people. But as that is said, that is where we will leave it on the big story today. As the calls for constitutional review continue, one thing remains clear. A nation can only thrive when its foundation, its constitution, reflects the will and welfare of the people. Let the conversation not end in the corridors of power, but flow through communities, markets, schools, and streets across Nigeria, because only them can we bring the gap and bridge the gap between government and the governed to a close. Thank you for joining us. I am Samson Balogun, and this has been the big story on Daybreak Live. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and above all, stay engaged. The show is still Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television. Let's go on a short break, and when we return, we'll take you through Trend Watch this morning. We'll be back after this time out.